Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Jackie, who is here to help you find what works best for you. Now, Jackie believes that since the health industry is so unregulated with so many blurred lines, in order to find the clarity that you actually need to come back to common sense, she's going to talk us through what works for you or what worked for her and what aligns really within your beliefs and your morals. And we're going to dive a lot today into the nutrition side of things, hence why Jackie is here with us. She's a nutritionist. But we're also going to dive in a lot about nutrition and how it ties in nicely into our menstrual cycles. And I'm really excited about this because we haven't spoken much about nutrition around the menstrual cycle. We've talked a lot about programming and training and mindset. But yeah, so stick around, have a listen. Jackie, welcome, babe.
Hello, thanks for having me. Excited? I love podcasts.
Yeah, me too. I love to talk, and I'm sure all our listeners already know that.
That's what the problem, right? With like every time I've been on a podcast, I end up in like a friggin' 20-minute conversation before and after, because obviously if you're on a podcast, you love to talk.
Yeah. We've literally been online for like the past 10 minutes just yapping around. So I thought, why not press record and continue yapping?
We can rap.
Hey, I was rapping to Nicki Minaj this morning. She is amazing.
I can try, but I'm no good. I'm absolutely no good. Shocking. I'm pretty good at a lot of things. Like how cocky was that? I'm good at some, like I've got a bit of a creative side to me and everything, but when it comes to like singing, it's the one thing. No.
Shower singing?
I mean, I do it, but I'm not good at it.
Said who? You or someone else?
I think everyone else.
I love it. Well, we'll keep the singing to Nikki. Let's stick to the nutrition for yourself, eh?
I think so.
Cool. Well, let's dive straight into it. So I want to know what got you into nutrition in the first place.
Cool. Well, look, I've always loved it. Let's start way back. So I'm now 29 years old. When I was 18 at school, I did all the sciences. I knew I was destined to be in science somewhere. Loved the human body, always have. Was like, not going to get the 99 to get into medicine. So I looked at all these other things. I then went and did a course or a master's degree in prosthetics and orthotics. Didn't love it. Like, did it all, did the 4 years and everything, and then got to the end and was like, what am I doing? Like, and my dad pushed me like, just get your piece of paper, And I'm like, yeah, Dad, okay. So I finished it anyway, never really loved it. Didn't work that much in it at all. And then I went and got my PT course. I started PTing. And then from there, I was like, everyone's asking me about nutrition and I'm a stickler for like being qualified. And there's only so far that you can go with being a PT and nutrition. So I was like, no, all right, let's do this. I've always loved it. I've always found nutrition, biochemistry in particular, really fascinating. Like I love like the cells and that really in-depth stuff that I try to communicate to everyone else in a really simple way. And my own, I guess, with my own sort of little personal journey, when I was 18 in high school, I was overweight. So I'm 5'2". I'm very small.
You're very short.
Yeah, very short. And I was about 80 plus kilos. I remember I donated blood one day and I weighed in at 80 and I was like, oh God, I never really necessarily looked big body composition wise. For anyone who's just listening, I'm doing the inverted commas.
Yeah.
But because I'd always been into sports, so always played netball and everything, like growing up, swimming, tennis, did hockey and stuff at school, cricket. So I've always been fit, but I just ate really, really bad. Like, I'm 18. We would go to Woolies before school and get snacks for class. Like, Anyway, then I left school. Then I just like, what am I doing? Like, I was sick of my own shit. Sorry to swear. I'm sick of my own shit and was like, no, cleaned up what I ate, started eating really healthy, started feeling really good. I was going to the gym. Ever since I've been 18, I've consistently gone to the gym. I don't think I've had any longer than maybe like 10 days off when I had a surgery. but yeah, and then so that journey obviously sort of led me down this whole kind of PT, movement, biology, nutrition pathway now, and I love it. Like I can genuinely say I'm obsessed with what I do. I'm obsessed to learn. And that's a part of the reason why I started it, was because I was being a PT, then combining my master's degree. I knew how to research, I knew how to look through journal articles, and my spare time was spent either reading nonfiction textbooks before bed or pulling up journal articles. So I know I'm a closet geek for sure. But yeah, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I love this. I should study it, make a career out of it, go from there. So I went back to uni at what I think I was like 24, 23, 24. And then graduated. Now I'm a mum and doing all the things.
All the things.
All the things, yeah.
I love the fact that you also expressed that you love biochem and anything to do with nutrition, because I absolutely despised it when I was in high school. Could not, none of it. I did not want a bar of it. But then once I certified as a personal trainer, you know, they give you a really minimal amount of nutrition. And once you go out there into the industry, there's so much further education around that. And I remember diving into biochem again, and I was just like, wow, this shit is fucking fascinating.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? Like literally, I could sit there and watch videos on it. I list like my podcast. You should see my podcast on Spotify. It is like all science. Like people would look at me and go, what is wrong with you?
I don't think so, because I think the right people who are attracted to the science and stuff that you're interested are getting so much value from it as well.
Yeah, true. And I just believe, like, again, when we're talking nutrition, biochemistry is like those building blocks, just like in movement, learn the basics, learn the basic movement patterns, you know, you squat, you deadlift, bench, row, things like that. If you've got those basics down pat, then you can extrapolate. Yeah. And then if you know the basics of anatomy, you can then deal with basically any injury, because if you know how a normal or healthy body should be working, you'll then know how to help fix an injury. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So just from that point of view, same thing goes to biochem. If you know what needs to be happening from that's really, really small level, you can then build upon it, and you can basically work with not anything, but like, you know, and there's a lot to know. Yeah. A lot to know. I still don't know it all. I don't think I ever will. But yeah, I just find it fascinating. And I think it really helps to have that love for it, to be decent at what I do and actually help people. And yeah, try and communicate that. If you can know it at that level, I find that you can communicate it really well.
Yeah, because to be honest, I find that a lot of people can digest it, and I might be speaking from experience that I can understand it myself, but when you're explaining it to someone and having to, you know, dumb it down to your everyday client, it's quite challenging because it's so scientific, and people are looking at you with like an open jaw going, no idea what the fuck you're saying.
I'm the queen of analogies. I'll probably pull out a few. So I always use analogies. And that was how I used to study. If anyone needs a study tip, is that I would try it. So my partner, he's a plumber. My mum grew up. My mum was like a housewife growing up and then did admin, still does. So if I can explain it to them and I tried to teach them things, then I was happy with my knowledge.
Love that. Love.
Yeah.
What's your ultimate analogy?
Oh my God, there's so many. They'll literally come up. My favorite one's probably one about the gut. So a lot about gut health at the moment, like stacks, all right? It's like a hot topic, but rightly so. Like when we're actually looking at the evidence, it's huge. It links to everything. You'll hear all about the gut microbiome and the gut bugs. Taking a Metamucil, for example, for fiber is no good. Yet, yes, you might clump in a big chunk of fiber and the amount of fiber is good. But are you getting the variety? When we're looking at long-term health data and long-term health outcomes such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all those kinds of things, even menstrual health, we want a variety of fiber. A variety of different types of fiber is what makes our gut work at its optimal, because they all do different things. Just like, here's the analogy, if you're on a stranded island, I don't know, you're plane crashes and you were with 10 personal trainers, for example, what are your chances of survival or doing well on this stranded island compared to if you were on the island with a doctor, a nutritionist, a PT, a builder, an electrician, a plumber, a nurse, a teacher? With that kind of diversity, you have much more of a chance of survival because everyone pulls in their different expertise, I guess, so they can do their different things. So each different microbiome does a different thing. It digests a different thing. It spits out different things, and it works in the body differently. They're like little minions in the body that go around switching things on and off. And there's another one.
I love the minions. I'm really glad you brought that up.
It's actually the funniest movie ever.
I freaking love it.
Oh, so good. But yeah, so that's the importance of variety of fiber when it comes to gut health and you working optimally, because your gut genuinely does connect to everything like every other system does in the body. But it's really, really important for fiber variety. So simply slamming down a tablespoon of Metamucil a day isn't going to cut it. You need to eat a variety of plants, get a variety of fiber in.
I love it. Yeah. And it's so important that you've brought that up, because too often, even from a young age, we get told to supplement with certain supplements or certain medications to help with gut health. But like you said, you're needing the variety. It's not just one type of supplement's going to help you. It's a variety of different ones.
Yeah. And you take it back to, standard nutrition in itself. When you, for example, eat an apple, you're not just getting fiber. You're getting all these beautiful vitamins and minerals, polyphenols, which are basically like the active constituents in food that work sort of medicinally, I guess, in your body. You're getting all these beautiful things wrapped up in there that simply, maybe supplementing vitamin C isn't going to cut it compared to if you eat the apple or the kiwi or the orange. It's just packed with so much more. And as a nutritionist, we're probably the biggest to blame for straight supplementing, bulk supplementing. But at the end of the day, if the diet's not right, those foundations aren't there, you're only going to go so far. Like a supplement really is a drop in the ocean when those foundations aren't established. So, and it's about, piecing all together. And when you learn, it's kind of hard when you learn the biochemistry, you can go, oh, wait, so if I supplement that will help that process, and I can supplement this and I can add that in. Like you look at it from that such a specific angle that you're like, oh, if I just supplement all that, I'd be prime. Not the way.
Yeah, everyone loves the magic pill.
I know. Well, that's the thing, right? If there was a magic pill, we'd have no problems. We'd all be living till 500, disease-free.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know how life would be if we lived up to 500.
I know, right? I always say I'm going to live to at least 100.
I think 100 is good. I've been around a lot of 100-year-old people, and they've done really well for themselves.
Yeah. My she's 93
Oof,
now.
Love that.
And she's still kicking it. Like, yeah, I'm like, yes, I want those genes.
Well, you kind of do.
And I am my dad, and so that's my dad's one that I was talking about. And so hopefully they're mine as well.
Yeah, just, slide it in there. I love it. Speaking of, we spoke about fiber, gut microbiome, and we know that, as we mentioned, gut health is like this hot topic right now. We know that there's a correlation between gut health and a menstrual cycle or a vagina. What is your knowledge around that? Or most of all, like, what have been some cases around clients that have suffered with gut health, which has been more correlated to, their cycles?
Yeah. So a really, really, look, again, it's going to tie into pretty much every pathology or disease with the reproductive system, really, because what people need to understand is that there's a really, really thin lining through your gut. And that's where I think it's over 70% of our immune system is derived. It's called the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, the GOLT. So over 70% of our immune system is derived from there. So that's where you'll find that a lot of people who have these gut problems tend to have something else going on. A really, really big one it's not a hot topic, it's kind of a sad topic, is endometriosis. So endometriosis is more so a condition of immune dysfunction. So we tend to find a lot of clients with IBS can tender towards that endometriosis side. And most people that I've seen in particular with endometriosis have some kind of IBS looking picture. Or, you just look at their stool formation, their bowel frequency, things like that, their bloating, their pain, their GIT tract symptoms, and their SKUIF. So that's a really, really big one because it's, again, relating back to that immune picture. I think you'd potentially, in years to come, endo may or may not be considered down that sort of autoimmune pathway. It's not necessarily an attack on the reproductive system, but it's this clear link between immune dysfunction and endometriosis. So that's a really big one. But again, everything else, so not only understanding that the immune system comes a lot from the gut, but also understanding that your gut, or basically when we say gut, we essentially mean mouth all the way through to anus. Really, you're essentially hollow through your insides. So you've got to almost think as your gut on the outside of your body that's inside of you. Does that make sense? So it's really, really prone because there are places that things can enter, diseases can enter, germs can enter, that we really need to look after it and nurture it. When we chew our food, it breaks down in our mouth. It then goes down through our esophagus where there's little finger-like things called villi sticking out. The esophagus also squishes in and out and it travels down, and that helps break down that food. The food then goes into the stomach. The stomach has stomach acid where it then further breaks down the food to less than about 1 millimeter, ideally. And then that travels through into the small intestine first. The small intestine is key because that is where the bulk of our nutrient absorption happens. Other than B12, most of our nutrients go through our gut, through our small intestine. So your food's broken down in your small intestine, and then through these little single cells in the small intestine, it basically enters in the cells, gets packaged and unpackaged, transports its way through, and then exits the cell. It goes through the bloodstream into the liver, gets processed by the liver, and then goes out towards the tissues. So you can only imagine if your gut is disrupted in any way, if there's any damage to those cells that line the gut where all the absorption happens, if there's any damage or sluggishness towards the liver. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a huge one, or for us young girls who may or may not be drinking quite a bit, that's also another huge impact, is alcohol, smoking, any kind of toxin. But when there's problems to these areas, we're not going to get the nutrients that we need at the levels that we need them. So then the flow-on effect from that is, let's say, okay, I'm 20 years old, I binge drink every weekend, at least 40 drinks across the weekend between Friday to Sunday. I then am at uni, so I just get Macca's for lunch and I'm on a budget. I eat 2-minute noodles for dinner. You're barely getting any nutrients through that diet alone. Plus,
talking my age.
Just reliving my life as an 18-year-old.
Literally, I'm like, whoa, is she talking about me? Like, yeah.
I know. So yeah, you're barely getting any nutrients. You're causing quote unquote damage to the gut and the liver in particular. That any nutrients that you are getting from those foods, your body is always going to prioritize survival, because at any one time your body wants you to live. Your body internally, as much as people might have problems with internals, your body always has your back. Your body wants you to live. So unfortunately, we don't need a menstrual cycle to live short term, but we do need a brain. We do need a heartbeat. We do need our blood to circulate. So all the nutrients that we are getting, which is very minimal, they're going to go to those immediate acute survival processes. They're not going to go to the menstrual cycle because we don't need that to live. We don't need to be happy to live. So serotonin production, for example, is also compromised. Then we can lead on to things like depression. Then that has an effect on with the gut. And it always loops in. There's always this ever tangled web of problems that can go on. So that's where it's really, really important that we look after our gut and nourish ourselves, because we need to, I don't know about you, but I want to live, not just survive, It's like going into the ER, into the hospital. Look at the current time. It's already shit as it is at the moment. If I walk in with a broken ankle, I'm getting pushed to the back of the line. I'm probably not going to be seen by a doctor for 9 hours. I'll eventually kind of get attended to. They'll do what they need to do. Then it's go home and rest. Whereas if I'm coming in with chest pains and I can't breathe, I'm going straight in because I'm possibly about to die. That is essentially what your body is doing with the nutrients. It puts them all into a hierarchy, and it's going to go to where it's most needed in terms of that survival point of view. Now, if we're looking at it less acutely and more long-term, essentially we kind of do need our menstrual cycle to live. Because if we have the hormones that are getting made through the menstrual cycle, they're not just important for making a baby, they're important for long-term health, such as bone health, heart health, prevention against cancer or minimizing risk against cancers, hair growth, mood. Progesterone is like the most beautiful natural anti-anxiety agent in your body. So if you're not ovulating, you don't make progesterone, no wonder people are feeling anxious or depressed. So we do need our menstrual cycle for this long-term health beyond making a baby. So again, you could say you're really damaging yourself if you're allowing yourself to go through your life with an unhappy menstrual cycle. God, we've kind of diverted there, didn't we?
I love that. Love a good fucking rant, seriously. And I'm sure our listeners are like literally just jaw dropping or taking notes as you're talking, because it correlates all together. It's making our listeners understand that your gut health is not just your stomach. As you mentioned, it's like from the mouth all the way down to the anus. It's a whole massive process. And a lot of people don't break it down as neatly as you did. And I want to also make a point that you mentioned is around the progesterone and stress. That is a huge one. And I'm someone who, personally have been suffering with low progesterone due to stress. We're all fucking stressed. Stress is everywhere. It's just a matter of how we deal with it. But I really want us to talk about this because I'm sure, well, you're an expert around this, but when you have a client case who comes with you who's stressed, gut health issues, low progesterone, what are some things that you would look at to help them, attain a healthier lifestyle around nutrition?
Yes. So look, that's a very loaded question. It really depends. Like it is. So I just always remember that everything I talk about today, everything is individual. You have to take things case by case because no one is the same. But at the end, my first things that I'm always questioning with my clients are, one, why is your progesterone low? Are you not ovulating that it's so low? And if you're not ovulating, why are you not ovulating? Is it stress? Is it gut? Gut and stress are linked together. So that's the one other thing I forgot to mention in terms of that is you have the biggest nerve in your body, the vagus nerve, runs from the base of the skull into your pelvis. That is a bidirectional pathway. So think like a freeway. You can go up and down either side between the brain and the gut. So anytime you're stressed, you're going to impact the gut. Anytime there's gut problems, you're going to impact your mental health. So it's really, really important, again, to be eating those nutritious foods and looking after yourself in every which way possible. It's not just about food. It's about mental health. It's about family time, friend time, work, everything. Looking after yourself to have those communication pathways open. So back to ovulation. Why are you not ovulating? Because it can be 1,000,001 things, and it can be as simple as not eating enough food or not enough carbohydrates, or it can be loaded stress. Or I've had women who are freaking out because they're telling me their period's late and they're never late. And, women, we know our bodies. We do. We know them. And if we're late, we know that something is up. And I go, okay, hold on a second before we jump the gun. Number one, still go and do a pregnancy test. Number two, what has gone on? And more often than not, like one of my most recent clients, her pa passed away. That is stress and emotion and everything combined. I lost my dad 3 years ago. I know the feeling, yeah? That in itself is enough to push back that ovulation because, again, your body wants you to ovulate and to cycle roughly every month, every 21 to 35 days. Your body wants you to cycle and ideally wants you to make a baby, whether you want to or not. That's the goal, yeah? If you're stressed under whatever circumstances, your body, as I said, always has your back and goes, hold up, girl. You're not at a right place right now to have a child. So I'm going to hold off this month. It might mean that month you don't ovulate, or that month your ovulation is delayed. You need to consider that scenario as a good thing because your body's protecting you, provided you're not chronically going with long cycles or no ovulation, then we're okay. But if you can reflect on what's been happening, then you can go, okay, yeah, I was stressed. It's been a hectic month. I know that that's why. So that's problem number one. We need to deal with the emotional side of things. That's nothing to do with nutrition. Or not nothing, because there are things that we can do to support our nervous system with nutrition, i.e. eat as hard as it can be in those times. It's the last thing you want to do, because again, you're sad, makes you sick thinking about eating in those kinds of moments. That's that gut brain connection. That the best that we can do, try and get something down. I always say, is there some kind of meal or a smoothie can tend to be good there, because you can just pack in nutrients and kind of drink it, even though you might not have an appetite. But that's that sort of scenario. If there's a big stressor that's very obvious, let's tackle that first. Maybe you need to go to a psychologist. Maybe you need to do whatever it is that you need to do that makes you happy. Go for a walk, go do some yoga, read a science textbook at nighttime. That's one thing. And then in terms of that, we need to, I always go to blood tests. I'm a stickler for blood tests. I like testing, making sure that things are okay. There's big implications with thyroid. And again, a lot of that comes back to stress, gut, nutrient absorption, and ensuring the thyroid has enough nutrition. We need to tick that off the list. We need to tick gut health off the list, because it might be as simple as your gut's a bit skew that you're not absorbing the nutrients. So we can go to gut repair, things like glutamine, glutathione, B vitamins can really help with those sorts of scenarios. And again, fiber. Nurturing that. I forgot the question, to be honest, but there's so many different things that we can do. Again, it just comes down to why. So why is that happening? Then that will navigate which angle that we go. Simple iron deficiency. If you have an iron deficiency, that means, so you need iron to convert your inactive thyroid hormone to your active thyroid hormone. Your thyroid hormone provides almost every cell in your body with the energy that it needs to function. So if you have iron deficiency, you're not converting enough of that of that active thyroid hormone. The thyroid hormone communication to the ovary is then downregulated. Your ovary doesn't have enough energy to ovulate. Simple as an iron deficiency.
And it's so common.
46% in the Western world have an iron deficiency or have had.
And would you say that's also just because of, shitty lifestyles, or also the lack of nutrients that women absorb?
Combination of both, all of it. Absorption, food quality, stress in itself again, because like I said, it's all going to link back, Your nutrient absorption happens in the gut. That is key. So if we're stressed, if we're not looking after that gut, it's a big, big, big issue. And again, as women, we're menstruating. And again, if you have something wrong with your reproductive cycle where you are heavy bleeding or you have clots in your blood, there's things like that that's also going to impair your body's iron. So women are always going to be more deficient or at more risk of deficiency compared to men, as long as they're cycling.
I'm lucky enough that I haven't had any issues with my iron. However, I recall when I was younger that I was fatiguing quite easily because my iron, like some doctors, they're like, your iron level's okay. And you're like, is it though? Because I'm really fucking tired. Like, I have no energy. But once I noticed changing the quality of my foods, getting more nutrients, eating more red meat, which I was not eating enough of, now I personally can sense the difference in energy and the quality of my blood as well.
Awesome. I love that. Again, it comes down to iron is one thing that you need. This is where, again, doctors are a bit funny. Again, people need to remember, I'm not against doctors at all. They're so necessary and I love a lot of them, but they interpret results really differently. And it's just the way that they're taught. It's the way that Medicare runs. They're not trying to hate on you. That's not the thing. They just look at things differently, and they need to almost come from a diseased angle. You need to kind of be diseased for them to look at you. Whereas we kind of want to prevent you. So that's one thing. But when I'm looking at an iron study, for example, I'm not just looking at iron itself. I'm looking at your iron storage capabilities. I'm looking at how saturated your cells are with iron. I'm looking at levels of B12, levels of copper, levels of B6, the size of your red blood cells. There's all things like that we look at a blood test, and then we piece them all together and go, okay, because someone might have low ferritin, which is ferritin's our storage iron, goes and gets stored in our tissues. But their blood iron levels are really good. And then you might see that's the iron that's floating around in the blood. And then you see that the saturation levels are quite high, meaning that iron's not getting absorbed. So generally, almost always, I would say we're looking at B12 there, B12 deficiency. And again, that's just with the food quality these days. It's pretty hard to get, especially for the plant-based people is something I'm personally mostly plant-based. For those people, you need to supplement B12. I will go through a supplement of B12 pretty much once a year. I use the spray. But yeah, there's little things like that, little hints and tips and tricks that you just won't get from a doctor because again, they get, I think it's like 12 hours of nutrition study in 5 to 10 years of their own study, which is just whack to me because like everything comes back to nutrition.
Yeah.
Everything, because that is what fuels our body. If you don't put petrol in a car, it's not going to work. If we don't put food in our body, we'll literally die. And again, coming back to the lay human, Gen Pop, if we don't put food in our body, we will die.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is how important food is. And I think because I can go to Macca's down the road and 7-Eleven over there, and there's an IGA, a Woolies and an Aldi all near me, food is so accessible to us. Luckily enough in the Western world, we're very lucky. Food is so accessible and food is so processed and food is so mechanically made a lot of the time now that we forget the importance of it, that we need to remember that food fuels our body. And yes, I'm a big believer that also food is there for social and family time and things like that. So yes, you need to have those enjoyment times. When I go to a wedding, I eat everything. I drink everything because you need to do that. But for the majority of the time, we need to remember that food is so important.
Yeah.
Mm.
When was there a time in your life where food wasn't important for you?
I can answer this one straight away. Oh, I mean, food quality wasn't important for me. Food was in terms of my body because I did a bodybuilding competition, which was fun.
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was 22,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Don't mind me. I just have to sit cross-legged, I think I was 22. And I did my bodybuilding competition purely out of like something to do. Like I'd run a marathon the year before that, half marathon the year before that. I was like, what can I do now that's not running? Bodybuilding competition started 12 weeks out, which is like ridiculous, like such a short time.
So you sound exactly like me because that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, ridiculous, right? Yeah. So within the first month, I lost my period. I was on the pill. So it was really strange. So I was on the pill at the time. And I'm kind of thankful for this whole experience because it led me to coming off the pill, which we can get to later. But I was on the pill at the time. And within 4 weeks, I dropped a fair whack. Like when I do something, I like to do it well. So I went gung-ho, like almost 100% through this whole bodybuilding prep. Lost my period, spoke to my coach. She was like, yep, that's completely normal. Like it's just a part of it, part of the sport. Which, like, I don't blame her. She did that, and that was a thing. And she doesn't believe in that now. I know. I see her. I follow her. But yeah, we're all young. We've all done stupid things. I've recommended stupid things too that I now look back and go, "Oh fuck." And sorry if that was with anyone. But so I was like, okay, whatever. Like that's fine. Knowing nothing about what I know now, absolutely nothing. Went on, did this bodybuilding comp. Through this comp, I was literally at the end point for the last 6 weeks. I was eating white meat, green vegetables only, because apparently orange and red ones are bad for you. And I think the most carbs I had a day was about 60 grams, which is like nothing, right? I think I was maybe a quarter of a cup of oats and 2 rice cakes in terms of, the starchy carbs. When I say carbs and you hear carbs, and what the foods that you think of when I say carbs, that's what I mean by that. And I was training twice a day, 6 days a week. Yeah. Right. So I was on 1,300 calories too. So I lost my cycle, obviously. I was pooping. I was on OxyShred. Duh. Taking OxyShred because like that's going to help. My gut was effed. I was pooping entire blueberries, like, which is also funny because I obviously didn't chew. Like, there was literally a whole blueberry in the toilet. Carrot, spinach, my poos were watery. I didn't see a solid stool for, I don't know, 6 to 12 weeks, maybe.
Wow.
Like, after that, yeah, it was, and again, I didn't know much then. I wasn't studying nutrition.
Yeah.
I knew movement more than I did nutrition back then. I just knew from my self-teachings, really. So I was just doing the thing, and then my period still didn't come back, and my skin was really shit, really bad. I've never really had bad skin, so it's bad for me, but I had like all these pimples along my chin line, quite inflamed and red. I wasn't happy during my bodybuilding comp. Man, Tom, poor Tom. He would try and make a joke, and I would literally turn around and look at him and be like, don't. Like, he was so supportive, bless his soul, but I was horrible. So again, happiness compromised, gut compromised, period compromised. Thyroid, eventually realized, was also compromised. So went and got blood tests done. And then I had high thyroid antibodies. My thyroid itself was fine, the functioning of it, but high thyroid antibodies. So that goes to show that my immune system is trying to somewhat attack my thyroid. So that is a big red flag. And then I wasn't ovulating. Obviously, like, I'm not getting a period. So I had next to no progesterone. And on top of that, I had really, really high estrogen. So when we're talking, just a side note here, when we're talking with our female hormones, just estrogen and progesterone, we, yes, want to look at them individually, but we also want to look at them, more importantly, together and ratioing them against each other. You can be progesterone deficient, for lack of a better term, but still be making progesterone, just you make excess estrogen. Or you may have low progesterone and excess estrogen. Or you might have low of both. Like, there's so many different scenarios there. So again, that's a big factor into coming back to our sort of treatment plan and what I like to say, case building, because you like to get all these bits of information from everywhere and put them together. So that's one thing I always like to look at. Yeah, so no progesterone, everything. Then I eventually got my period back 12 months later, but it was crap. It was, they'd either come 10 days apart and be barely bleeding. So again, a sign of non-ovulation, or they'd be really long cycles and like a 10-day bleed. It was like spotting for 10 days with one heavy day. And again, my skin was still shit. So I was like, nah, I've got to look into this. This is when I started my nutrition degree. Looking into it, and I eventually came to, quote unquote, fix myself. I even watched my blood test that time, that I knew I was good because I got my period back. I watched the blood come out, and the blood came out better. So estrogen, when it's in excess or not enough progesterone, the blood can thicken, blood volume can thicken. It's a part of clotting and migraines and things like that when there's excess estrogen. And I was literally watching the blood vial, and I was like, nah, I'm good now. I saw it come out because the doctor would struggle to literally pull the blood out of my arm.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I must say, when I was bodybuilding, I got down to, I think, about a 13% body fat, and I was 65 kilos before I started, and I got down to about 50 in 12 weeks. As an already like conditioned human, like, I've been at the gym for 5 years, and I was eating relatively well. Like, that is whack to do. I keep saying whack today. It's the word of the day. I like don't say that in my real life. I don't know why. But yeah, like, that in itself is crazy. So yeah, and then I eventually, again, through my own teaching though, which is the annoying thing, like, no doctor helped me. I went to a gynecologist who took a bio. Oh, that's the other thing. I had positive syn cells on my uterus, and I'd never had a problem before, like, ever. And all this stuff sort of piled on at once. So I had to get biopsies and stuff done. They were luckily all came back all came back okay. And then they eventually cleared up. But who told me, you don't know where you are in your cycle. How do you know what your hormones should be doing? Like, no time to know who I was, what I'd done. I'd been tracking my cycle for the last 16 months. I've got it all there. Like, you have no idea. And she literally like slammed at me. I'm lucky I'm a strong woman. I reckon I would have walked out of that crying. Like, my Lord. So that's what also the way some health professionals talk to their patients really grinds my gears because it's so devastating. But yeah, eventually I got there through my own research and through my own doing, that now that's probably why I've come down this way, honestly. Like, and I've got like a real passion about it. Like, it lights my fire. Then I started learning all about the pill and what that can do and contraception and the big tangled web of the reproductive cycle.
And you know what? That's why you're great at what you're doing. And that's why we've brought you here today to have a chat about this and make our listeners understand a little bit more that, hey, that if something's not right, and you need to look a little bit deeper into it and have a better understanding of what the symptoms are trying to tell you. Because as you said, like, your body is, well, it's going to give you certain signs, whether you're aware of it or not. It's
always talking to you. It's always talking to you. Sometimes it's just about coming to light of knowledge and going, okay, maybe I should look in the toilet and see what my poop's doing. And yeah, don't ever settle. Like, you literally only get one body. There's no dress rehearsal. Don't settle for mediocre. If you're in pain, if you're experiencing symptoms, even if the doctor's done every test under the sun that he then resorts to, he, she, they, them, resort to, it's your mental health, which also, don't settle for that. Keep going until you find the right health professional for you. It might be me, it might be you, it might be someone, whoever.
Yeah.
There are going to be people that you resonate with no matter what. It might not even be the right, like, really, if you look at it, it might not even be the right thing, but if it's works for you, if you resonate with your health professional, if you agree what they're saying, if you can implement that into your lifestyle and everything's going well, then do it. Just like placebo, right? If you're taking something and you think that's working for you and you're experiencing good things and it's healthy, then great, do it. Even if it's placebo. One time as well, when I've got my daughter now, Lani, she's 14 months old. I went and got my preconception bloods, and because of my previous history of thyroid antibodies, I wanted to get them tested, and it's not standard in preconception blood tests. And my doctor goes, why do you want to do that? And she goes, and I was like, oh, well, there's links between thyroid complications and miscarriage. And she goes to me, well, have you miscarried yet? I was like, sorry. And she goes, well, have you miscarried yet? And I was like, no. Do I have to miscarry for me to? I was like, my most recent blood test showed high antibodies. That should be enough to justify to get it done again to check up on it. Well, you can't do anything about them anyway. So why do you want to check them? Which you can. And I was just like, look, can you please just, and she said, no, I can't do that for you, which I get that they've got their own way of doing things, but it was the way it was said. It was like this attacking, like, so what? I have to have a miscarriage, potentially go through depression, anxiety, go through all these attempts at trying to actually get some help when I could have prevented the miscarriage in the first place. Or you could have said, I'm not going to do that for you. I understand why you might want to do that. That's fine if that's your belief, but we can't subsidize that for you. You can do the test, but you'll have to pay. Or I can refer you on to someone who might look to be more down your alley. Handle it like that. I get that you might not believe in it or you might not want to do it, but don't sit there and slam someone. I'm lucky that I know health. Like, and I sit there and go, I was sweating balls and so nervous. And I'm like, if that was anyone else who wasn't in the industry and not necessarily a strong woman, I would consider myself quite confident, then fuck, you'd feel like shit. Real shit. Like, that's horrible. So that's why that was what I wanted to put in at the start, was do what's right for you and don't settle if you're not happy.
Yeah.
Just like anything, if you're in an unhappy relationship, don't settle. You can find someone that's going to work for you, whatever it might be. You can get what you want and you can be happy in every avenue in life, not just medical.
Yeah. It's literally putting your foot down and going, if something's not okay, like you said, like a toxic relationship, you wouldn't settle for it. So why are you settling for painful
morals and beliefs? Morals, beliefs, and values. What are your morals, beliefs, and values? If you're not aligning with them, you're going to have a shit time.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure that you're coming back to them always. Like, I'm always constantly pushing. I've just finally, because I've got Lani now, like, I need to find a good doctor.
Yeah.
I had a new one at my original clinic that I grew up going to, because now my old family doctor's like a 70-year-old man who I just don't get along with. Needs to retire. But yeah, I found this woman and she's fantastic. So I'm so grateful for that. But that is literally taken my entire adulthood until now. So that's 10 years.
Yeah.
But keep going, like literally worth it, I reckon.
100%.
Absolutely worth it.
Keep pushing for answers, definitely.
Yeah. Because like without your health, you have nothing. Like if you're not healthy, you can't work. If you're not healthy, you can't be in a relationship. Well, not that you can't, but you're going to struggle because yourself is not looked after. They always say, fill your cup first. That's a part of filling your cup. You need your health. Otherwise, I mean, there's another alternative, but we don't want that, do we? Yeah.
Definitely not. What a freaking episode, seriously. I was not expecting it to end on this like serious note.
So serious.
But you know what? Sometimes we have to have these serious conversations to make people realize that, hey, if something's not right, put your girl pants on and seek those answers.
And in terms of the whole reproductive cycle thing, which is what I mainly focus on, which we probably haven't delved into enough today, but in terms of that, you shouldn't have symptomatic periods. A little bit of pain here and there is all right. Maybe a Panadol, ibuprofen to help. But if you're getting any kind of symptoms, if you've got long cycles, all that stuff, you've got to treat your reproductive cycle as an overall marker of your health, because it really, really is something that we, luckily as women, get to have every month. Men don't get that. We have something to check in on us every month to go, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whether you want a baby or not, it's so, so important that you're cycling every month. Every month.
Yeah. A biomarker for health.
Yeah, it is. There's I don't know who coined it, but they say that it's the 5th vital sign, the reproductive cycle.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, you need to be able to tick I think there's a book called The Vital Sign.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah, there is one.
I'll have to Google it.
Yeah, same.
Make sure it's the right one.
But yeah, like you need to look after yourself in that scenario and consider it lucky. And just remember that even though it might be negative for you, like if you say you got endo and you're in severe pain 20 out of 30 days a month, which is the most horrible sounding disease, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I really feel for those women. And do you know, fun fact for you, that it takes an average of 10 years for a woman to be diagnosed with endometriosis. 10 years minimum of living with, and living with that pain, God. But if your body is doing that, it's trying to tell you something. Doing it out of spite to hate on you. It's doing it because it's trying to tell you something. Pain is a communicator. Something's going on.
Yeah, that's so true. Jackie, thank you so much for joining me today. Seriously, this conversation has been so insightful. I know our listeners are going to be like, oh my God, how can I work with this woman? So how can our listeners find you? How can they work with you?
Yep. So I probably would say I'm most prevalent on Instagram. So it's the Nourish Cycle. You can go through my website through there. You can book in with me. I am consulting out of a clinic in Albert Park, in Victoria, Melbourne, or I can do telehealth. So from anywhere in the world. Jump online. You can book through there. You can send me a DM, comment, like, whatever. I'm all there. I'm all hip and happening. The older I get, I say these things, and I'm like, fuck, I'm getting old. Swaggy.
I love it though. It's so funny because you just laugh at yourself. You're like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm making a fool of myself. People love it.
And I thought I was always going to, you think you're always going to be young and cool. And then like, I'm just trying to friggin' put my head around TikTok.
Oh my God. Don't get me started. Yeah. It's a whole nother world.
And then God forbid when Lani goes to school in 5 years' time, who knows what's going to be out then?
We'll have to wait and see.
Seriously.
Wait and see.
That's where to find me. So feel free to send me a message.
I love it. Awesome. Well, girls, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag myself, tag Jackie, and then till next time, track your cycle, track those symptoms, and put your big girl pants on if someone says no, because there'll be someone else there that will say yes to you too.
I feel like that's a job I could create.
100%.
Advocate for GP visits. I go in with people who can't do it themselves and go, oi,
I'm your woman.
I am here. Hear me roar.
Oh my God, love it. All right, girls, take care.
Thanks for having me.